Hi, my name is Evan Blache. I go by Ev, and I am currently 29 years old. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about my life. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. Icy. But we moved here. Well, first we moved to Memphis, and then we moved to Arkansas. Like 2 years after that, it was kind of weird. I don't remember a whole lot about really Arkansas. I remember a lot about Memphis. It gets kind of grainy. Adolescence is weird.
How old were you when you moved to Memphis?
Uh, Around 3. I guess that's where my brain formed, and all of a sudden I was aware of things. So I remember Memphis the most, and then we moved here. Well, first we moved to Austin, and then a year later, so at that point, 99, we moved to Cedar Park, and I've lived here ever since.
How did you spend your free time growing up?
We had video games always. We had a Nintendo growing up for a while. We were always a system behind, it felt like, which is fine. I say I still had a pretty decent childhood. I would play the Nintendo. Everyone was playing the PlayStation. I played the PlayStation. Everyone had the PlayStation 2. I had the PlayStation 2. Everyone had the PlayStation 3. And so on. But I did a lot of that. My parents, they wanted me to do other things. So they signed me up for Y soccer, Y basketball. They never signed me up for football because they were worried I was a little too soft and would get hurt too easily. So they only signed me up for soccer and basketball. There were my two options, and I did both. So I did that a lot. I think those were the only ones that were available anyway.
So you spent a lot of your free time playing video games. Why? Was it more of an escape for you, or was it something that you just found enjoyment from?
It was, yeah, it kind of was. I did have friends, growing up, but my parents have a lot of, trust issues and worry. So I didn't get to hang out with friends all the time, whether it was them coming to my house or vice versa. So, video games is the escape for me, because I'm too old for an imaginary friend. So Crash Bandicoot is my best friend now, or, Spyro is my best friend, and so on, or they're plushie. So yeah, and then even now I sometimes play. Ironically, I actually don't have as much time, but yeah, that was the dream. They were my other best friend when I couldn't hang out with my friends outside of elementary school. As a kid, I wanted to be a doctor because we have a couple people who were studying medicine on my mom's side. When I got older, I wanted to be a guitar player when I was like 12. Then I joined choir, and I knew I wanted to sing in some way. I thought I was going to go on American Idol, to be honest. And then as I got older, the whole music thing, it always changed in some way. I still was singing, but was like, maybe I'm not like a pop singer. Maybe I'm a classical singer. It's evolved in so many ways, and at some point I thought I was going to run cross country and do singing because I love to run. But, those runners, that's like their whole life. So for me, I eventually kind of needed to figure out what's more important, and singing was that, and singing still is that. So it's changed in many ways, but either way, as long as I'm inspiring people, that's what matters.
Who inspired you as a kid?
A few different people. I had a cousin who inspired me a little because, granted, he just was very carefree. He just was like, let's do whatever, So because whatever he wanted to do growing up always changed, I think in some way it felt like whatever I want to do can change, Maybe I want to be a doctor now. Maybe I want to be an astronaut now, it's endless. And it inspires me now because I still only want to be in music, but it inspires me that whatever I want to do in this life or in music, the possibilities are endless. I don't have to do just one thing just because someone said I have to do that one thing. So he's the one who inspired me the most, and he still kind of lives that way.
What was your first job and why did you get it?
I was a referee at the YMCA, so full circle at that point. I was a referee for kids soccer. And then at one point later on, I stayed at the Y and was working with them at it's so many different names now. Might be Teen Zone, Kid Zone, whatever it is now. But yeah, referee. I got paid like $9.25, which was, at that time in 2011, something like that. That was dope. Everyone else was getting paid $7.25, so I kind of felt like a king. But I got that job because I volunteered a lot with my church, who they partnered up with the league Upward, which is like a church, sport league, where they did basketball, soccer, football. Celebration Church only did basketball, and so I learned how to referee for them. And so then the YMCA was like, "Hey, we're hiring," and it was easy. It was so easy.
Who would you consider to be your best friend? And are you still in touch with them now?
I'm not doing one. I'm not doing one. Let's get it. In no particular order, you know, uh, my best friends, are Nathan Thompson, who's music for me, Josh Ryan or Rodriguez. I don't know. He goes by both last names lately. Music. Marvin Harris, RIP to him, but, was the first best friend I made moving into Cedar Park. So very monumental.
Can you touch a little bit on you and Marvin's relationship? What was that like?
Yeah, we were trouble. I met him at Nauman Elementary. And, yeah, and we we kind of didn't like each other at first. Like it was weird. We're kids. I mean, 4 years old, so 4 to 5. You know, not a care in the world. And then we got in trouble with each other all the time. And so his parents and my parents made sure when they would request for a specific teacher, they would ask each other which teacher that the person requested, so that we never were in the same class. It worked for like 3 years, and then we ended up in the same class together, and there was nothing they could do. And we were bad then too, but we had a pretty good friendship. We kind of fell off a little in middle school because, the jump to elementary and middle school, everyone wants to be cool, and then you're not really that cool after all. And
What did
then
you think being cool was like it from elementary to middle school? What kind of changed or what defined being cool at that time?
uh
We're talking about the Soldier Boy, turn your swag.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
What was going on for you personally?
Everyone knew the dances, everyone wore the, certain outfits. My mom was huge into that. She would buy me like, a lot of baggy stuff. Some of it I asked for, but some of it I think it's also because of her upbringing in Little Rock, and so it made sense. So, I wore like the baggiest shirts, what is it? US Polo, Echo Unlimited, everyone wants to look cool, and so I do think that affected the friendship, but we always were sort of friends. But that was kind of the thing. You get into high school, and then I guess that kind of still happens. But that was kind of the thing. That or school dances and dating someone.
Would you say that you've ever been in love? Have you been married or divorced or anything like that? What's current love status, love life? What's that experience like for you?
Oh man. Yeah, I've been in love, a couple times. I am in love right now, but I wouldn't say I've been divorced, but I was engaged, which was such a weird concept for me. I didn't know that would happen. I knew I wanted to be married, but yeah, I was engaged in like 2 years ago, and I guess we both realized, I mean, she ended it, but we realized, there were things she wanted and there were things I wanted as well. We wanted the same things, but we wanted them at different times. And there was so much compromise that now you're sacrificing who you are. And I wanted to make it work. But, if you can't make it work, then, I mean, there's nothing you can do. If one person doesn't want to make it work, unfortunately, that's kind of how it goes. It sucks, but yeah, I am in love now. Things are, strange. I care very deeply for this person, and I'm not sure where we're at right now, but all I know is I really do hope that this continues to evolve. I really do love them and care for them.
What is the most difficult thing you've had to endure?
Um, Mental health, I mean, I guess second could be chronic pain, but,
Can you elaborate on both of those? What kind of mental health, when you say that it's an umbrella of things, but also the chronic health, what are those? How did those influence your life and why do they make it something difficult to endure?
mental health, is its own thing because of outside forces or people or things, but a lot of it comes within. And so that can make or break. For me, I have ADD, probably ADHD too, for all I know, and I suffer from anxiety and depression. And growing up, we didn't know what those words were, and my parents, they tried to make that, make sense of it because not everyone believes that, especially in the community I am in. And so, but it also was weaponized in my community a lot, even by my mother. And so,
What do you mean by that? Weaponized?
like, so growing up, I went to therapy, but my mom used therapy as a weapon because, a kid they're almost not really a reliable source of things. So, you go to therapy with your parent, or you go to therapy and your parent's there, you say, hey, this is why I feel this way. And your parent can just say, granted, maybe I also had some bad therapists too. Uh, and your parent can say, well, no, that's not how it happened. You're a child. So, and so it actually made me not like therapy for years. But I've gone on and off for years. And I think therapy is needed. It's mental health is still hard and it's impacted me in so many ways. But as long as I have therapy or someone to talk to, I think it can be dealt with.
What about the chronic pain that you mentioned?
Chronic pain right now has been decent, like very good for the last like almost year. It's kind of weird. Kind of
How
like
long has it affected you, though? Would you say that the chronic pain started for you? Is this kind of more so in childhood, or has this been a development that's happened later in life?
uh like summer of when I was about to be a sophomore in high school. I I had like some small chest pains, and we thought, it was because I was eating and drinking water too fast. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, problem solved. Just don't, And then it kept coming, but it was weird. It would come for weeks and then go away for like months. And they said they thought it was heartburn. Long story short, years pass, and we thought this was something to accept, and then it got worse. Like it started lasting longer, the whole nine. And that's when we realized it was like, a heart, a autoimmune condition. And I've dealt with it since I was 16. It probably would have been acute if doctors had actually paid attention, but that's how it goes in healthcare. So I've learned to deal with it. Some years, sometimes it's better than others. When I say I'm not in pain, I'm probably in a little bit of pain. When I say I'm in pain, it really fucking hurts. The reason I have chronic pain is because of a condition called pericarditis. So the heart inflames similar to, you know, heartburn. And then the sac that surrounds the heart that holds it also inflames, just like heartburn. And then both of those rub together, creating friction, and it can be very painful. If you catch it early, it won't happen as often. But if you don't catch it early enough, it's chronic, as you see here with me.
What is the best thing you've ever experienced? Do you have a most fond memory that comes to mind?
Probably one of my fondest memories. Yeah, I think one of them was getting into undergrad at at Texas State at 4 year / graduating, because I kept telling everyone, yeah, I'm gonna do it event. I'm going to, and I was doing all the work to make it happen. And yeah, man, despite all the confidence, I did have some times I wasn't sure of myself either. And then it happened. And then I graduated, and
No.
it's a pretty cool moment. And now I'm in graduate school. And, if you had told me I was going to be in graduate school, I mean, I would have believed you, but I mean, I still would have been a little bit unsure about if you were talking about the right person. That's one of my fondest memories. I know it's corny, but, most people in my family, they stopped at like associates. So
What are you doing with your graduate studies?
I am currently studying music composition at Texas State for my graduate degree. Previously, I studied music education with a minor in composition.
What made that switch for you?
For me, I knew well, first I wanted to be a vocal performance person, but then I saw I loved teaching and I made that switch. I knew I wanted to compose still, but I'd rather be a composer that teaches than a teacher that composes. Well, if that makes sense. But one of them can get you the teaching job and the other can't, if I'm being quite blunt. But the what made the switch, for me was I was getting closer to, or I had started the degree at Texas State at this point, and I at that point was like, I'm gonna get in, get out. I've been in college for forever at this point, and so I said I'm just gonna finish it and we're done. And one of my professors said, hey, you're pretty good at XYZ. You should consider grad school. And I was like, oh man, it's only the first semester. Like, let's see if I drop out by accident, or something. And then a year later, he was like, hey, you thinking about grad school? I was like, I don't know. And then COVID happened. And then he said, hey man, are you? And I said, probably not. And then I was like a year and a half away. And he said, hey, are you thinking about it? And I was like, all right, yeah, probably. And my compositions were doing decently. People seem to like them. All of y'all seem to like my music, so I just keep writing it. Plus I write it for me. But if y'all like it, then I don't see a reason to not stop. And so at that point, I wanted to learn more. There's all sorts of stuff that I haven't learned, or I've already learned, and I want to expand upon. And so it felt like graduate school was the right idea. So.
How have things changed while you've been alive? This could be culturally, socially, economically, personally, but just over the span of your life, how have things changed?
Things have changed in many different ways. Socially, I can think about, especially because I've always been an extrovert, and I was, and I still am now. But as years go by, I do find myself actually needing to recharge a lot more. COVID, I feel like the lockdown definitely was part of that reason. My roommates want to hang out and talk and play board games all the time. And I, at some point, started feeling like, hey, man, I don't really think I want to hang out all the time. I think I want to go to my room and play Dota on Discord all night. Sorry. Not really that sorry. And so socially, or at least for me, there's that whole thing. As I've gotten older, things have changed also with how I care about people. Well, how, I guess the nuance, things aren't always so black and white. I care about everyone. I want to share the love, but I know there's nuance, and you can't help everyone. And I still do want to try to, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that if I do it at the risk, some people are worth doing it at the risk of your mental health, but you can't save everyone. I could go on and on, but I think those are the two that I can think about. off rip.
What matters to you most currently?
Honestly, my music and the relationships I have, both friendship and romantic. My music plays a part in how I mean, I can treat people well without my music, but my music is an extension of me. So everything you see in my music is because it's based off of how I am as a person and how I am with my relationships with others and how I feel. Those are the two most important things, and I want everyone to be able to share those moments, and I want to be able to share moments with my friends and with my loved ones, et cetera, and my family, you know.
Have you ever experienced a miracle?
Others. Huh. Yeah, I think so. There was I think the first thing I can think of, I was trying to think if there was some otherworldly things, but miracles can be miracles no matter how big or small. Back when I had first started community college, I had already tested out the bus routes, all the, I was going to bike to school, and I didn't live that far away from one of the many ACC campuses. So I had just started working a second job too. So I went first day at school, locked up my bike, was like excited, I was like, everyone says this isn't real college, but it's college to me. I get out, I guess technically two miracles. There's ACC put a bike lock on my bike because someone cut my lock. Got very lucky.
Shout out ACC.
Shout out ACC, honestly. Shout out the Austin College champions. Second miracle happened. So I got them to unlock it, and I biked home, and then I got hit by a car. What else could happen, right? And so, I had told...
Day one out here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And, you were out there, I think you had passed by, or I told you, I can't remember which. I said, yeah, man, I got hit by a car, it's crazy. And like my bike, it was done, there was no way, like the front tire was bent in. There was no saving it.
How were you? Were you okay?
Yeah, I was fine. I mean, a little dented. I cared about the bike more. I still care about that bike more. Growing up poor will do that, And so I was fine, honestly. I was like, I got hit by a car. Whoa, but I survived. So we're good. We're good. No, the second miracle came because, first you provided me with like your bike temporarily. Lo and behold, one of the guys from the football team had told me, oh yeah, Lorenzo had been raising money to help Evan get a new bike, mode of transportation. So I was like, oh, that is so cool. That is so solid. I didn't think anybody at Vista, because I graduated at high school. So nobody's thinking about the people who graduated really like that. I sure wasn't that much. So to know that there were still people around who were like looking out for me was like, that's a miracle to me, that people, were like, hey, we still want to help. We're thinking of you. We want you to succeed, and we're going to do what we can to make sure you succeed. That's a miracle to me, if anything. So yeah, two miracles that day.
I can't remember if I was pulling out of the parking lot or if I saw you on the side of the road and there was like another vehicle or like a cop or something like that was nearby, but it had like just happened.
And that's not the last time that I got hit either. That was
You've been hit by a car multiple times?
Yeah, like second time happened like in Anderson Mill, when I lived in Anderson Mill. I was skateboarding and someone hit my the what's it called, walk sign was on, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go full speed, and a person came around the corner and didn't even look, just try to go in. And I remember when they hit me, as I was going back, one of the people in the car looked and was like, bruh. And they hit me so hard that when I finally came home, I couldn't find my fucking car keys because the keys flew out of my pocket because they hit me so damn hard. It was kind of bad. I tried to get him to pay for some of my stuff because he like messed up a lot of my stuff, and I actually was in pain. But he was like, no, I don't want to take out insurance. So I had to actually contact, because he was on the job at Domino's. So I actually had to contact Domino's, and my parents were like, "Turn the other cheek," and I'm like, "Bro, my ribs are cracked. Like I can't." And so I had to contact Domino's, and and he lost his job because they take that very seriously, whether it's an accident or not. And so my parents said I was mean for it, but I mean, brother, I have two cracked ribs. You won't contact me. What else do you want me to do? I'm sorry. Poor guy. I feel bad for him. I hope he's okay because I'm sure he was really scared, but I was in pain. So,
Is there anyone that you admire currently and why?
hmm. One of the people I admire the most is one of the friends I named Nathan, because everything has always come by very easily for him. He's Nathan Thompson. He's someone who he went to college with me when I was an undergraduate. He finished both his undergraduate degree and master's degree in the time I was finishing my undergraduate. If that tells you how impressive he is already. Granted, he had like a couple years on me, but still very impressive nonetheless. He's gotten through everything, no matter how much he struggled. Like he somehow, even when things were hard, he still would finish each semester just fine. He made it seem easy. And then when he graduated, when COVID happened, you know, he was still fine. And then when he got his degree, and then he landed like a really sweet job, and I'm hearing his name like more and more, in the choral community. And it's like really cool to me, hearing about people who I went to college with. And I admire him the most because of that. Because even though my main thing isn't conducting like him, my thing is composing. And to me, I'm like, well, okay, if you can make it, I can make it, and I hope not just him, but I hope all my homies make it. The way I look at it, if we're friends, you should be happy for each other's success, no matter no matter how soon it happens for the other person.
How do you want to be remembered? And do you believe that your peers see you this way currently?
I want to be remembered as someone who not just created art and loved the art form, whether that's music, composing, some opera singing, who knows, maybe I'll write for movies or stuff. But I want people to remember me not just for my art form, but also someone who also used that art form, or as myself, who always spoke out against social issues and never backed down from what I believe in. I do believe people see me that way. I, yeah, I do believe people do. To some extent, that's a good thing and a bad thing, depending who you ask. I believe it's a good thing, and I hope most people do. I truly do believe that people will see me as someone who used my art form for good and also used my words for good, no matter what. My name is Blache, and every story deserves to be told.
Bingo. We're done.
Woo!